Stiller Board of Education regular meeting to order at 5 o'clock or 5:02 p.m. on Monday, February 14, 2022. Members present are David, Canning, Jennifer, and Susie. This time we move on to the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer by Ms. Kinley Ward.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we want to thank you for all of our many blessings that you've blessed us with, and thank you for the things that you have yet to bless us with. I pray that you just give all of these people here safety going home tonight, and for the rest of their year, I pray that they make good decisions and that the school board meeting can go to the best that you allow. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
It's good to see you after a while.
Good to see you.
Okay, at this time we move on to the approval of the minutes from the January 10th, 2022 meeting. Any questions, comments?
No changes?
or-
No. Make a motion to approve minutes. A second.
Motion made by Kitty, seconded by David to approve the minutes of the January 10th, 2022 meeting. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Abstain.
Okay. This time we move on to approval of the encumbrances and change orders.
Okay, if you look at that first page, look at that, no, you're fine. Look at that first page, the second PO there is 332, and that is to do our vision screening for our kindergartners. And then we have, like to look at 333 and 336, to Amazon and Goodyear. These are both, I asked Lindy in the beginning of the year to, we had been doing blanket POs on those among others for the whole year at one time. And I asked her to cut those at least in half, so toward the middle of the year, we could kind of see if those were running out and keep tabs on where we were. 334, 335 are dealing with football helmets. First 334 is, of course, the reconditioned. Those have to be reconditioned at least every 2 years to remain under warranty. And then we had a lot of football helmets that they will warranty them and they'll assume the liability for 10 years. And we had several this year going beyond that 10-year point, so those had to be replaced. And that cost is being shared through a third through donations of the 3 banks in town, the Booster Club, and then School Athletic Fund, basically in thirds. 337 and 340 that is a COSA conference for summer conference for the conference registration and hotel for that conference that administrators will go to in June. And we try to send all of our administrators to that to get their points. Then if you'll notice in 341 MTM recognition, that's that replica for the 1976 One Act Play State Championship trophy that we're replacing. And then if you look on the second page, there are 2 encumbrances there dealing with payroll. First is Virtual Academy, and we had not encumbered our Virtual Academy salaries for the year. So this is for the year, so we make that first installment for the first semester as is now, and then we'll do the second installment for the remainder of the year at the end of the school year. And then that last one, we encumber travel for certain employees, but we had some teachers that had some travel that we needed to encumber those expenses on meals and so forth, that second one. Third page is, remember we okayed and taking care of our roofing issues at the middle school and high school, and that is the encumbrance for that expenditure to Metal Roof Contractors, or MRC. And then on the last page of encumbrances, change order, and we have Mr. Greg Cast. He's a retired educator that we hired for this school year, and to be beneath what his salary limitations were through teacher's retirement. His payroll will be somewhat different first semester and second semester, because we tried to put as much of his salary, because he's under a $30,000 limitation. So we paid him as much as we could first semester, and then a lesser amount second semester, and to stay within those guidelines. So we needed to encumber that amount for second semester to finish up his salary for the year. But those are the encumbrances, not that many.
Make a motion to approve encumbrance.
A second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by David to approve the encumbrances as listed. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. This time we move on to other financial reports.
Okay, and we'll look right up here. Move around all the way. So, we went over this chart every month from the beginning of the year, July 1. And so we see that for January, the month we're just ending, our total salaries were $701,000, just a little bit over, as compared to last year at $694. Once again, it's up a little bit because of the grant positions that we have and that we're paying, that will dissipate over the next 3 years when those grants, we lose those grants. So we're having discussions once again this spring on how that will kind of come back together as far as absorbing some of that grant salary over the next couple of years as they dissipate. So you can kind of see month to month, this one was a little higher because of the stipend we gave, but we're averaging about $18,000 a month over last year on salaries. And then if you look down here, you can see where, as far as bills go, we're down for the year quite a bit. So right now in bills, we're down about $334,000 for the year. But combined, for January, our bills were about $4,237 less than last year. If you look at January for this year, $59,800. January for last year, $64,000, just a few dollars over $64,000. So we're in the good, a little over $4,000 this month compared to last year in bills. So far this year, we're down from last year about $93,511. Just got word that those 2 new buses that we ordered, they're putting us off now until March. They just in time for next year. So we'll have those coming in at some point, maybe. So we'll have that as an expense that will be invoiced when that takes place. Right now, we end the month with in the general fund $2,756,902 in the general fund. We just received a deposit, quite a bit of deposits in the receipts into the building fund this month. Some of that was the beginning of ad valorem taxes starting to pull in. The other was, if you remember, we talked about that new Red Bud grant that was gonna be to bring all schools in Oklahoma up to the state average as far as building fund revenue. So our first installment, we have 2 installments, and the first one was $98,756.55. So if you take that 98,000, you had about $20,000 of ad valorem. The rest of it's that Red Bud, and then sometime May, June, when that revenue is complete, then we'll get another installment. They're looking at, they're estimating somewhere around $200,000 for Stigler Public Schools. And then child nutrition fund right now about $150,000, about $151,000 that we ended up.
Okay, everybody good? Questions, comments? Okay, at this time, we move on to public comment. Board of Education invites public comment at this point in the regular meeting. A, comments concerning agenda items in accordance with policy BED-R. No one present for that. Information items, superintendent's reports.
Okay, and we've been, for the last 2 years, first thing on superintendent's report, just give you an update on COVID. And we had, you know, when I began, a couple weeks ago, we had to let school out because of staff shortages and that kind of thing for a couple of days, but it's kind of leveled off. Had a couple of neighboring schools called me at the end of last week asking about flu. So we've not seen a lot of issues yet with the flu as far as people being absent. But as I checked today at the high school, we had 0 out, either quarantined or isolated. At the middle school, we had 3 students quarantined and 1 teacher isolated, positive case, 1 teacher. And at the grade school, we just had 1 student on self-quarantine, the parents. Any of those quarantines, as we talked before, that's just a parent decision to, one of them I saw, the mom had tested positive, so she kept her kids home, that type of thing. Next thing, I'll be sending out a thank you on this, but we deeply appreciate the Emma Lou Hill family for donating a lot 3 and block 15, across the street from the grade school, was donated to Stigler Public Schools, and we'd like to thank the Emma Lou Hill family for that donation to the school. And if you're trying to think about that, that's right across to the east of the first grade building. There's a little house and a trailer that sits back behind that. So we're very thankful for that. And then lastly, on superintendent's report, just to update you, you may know this tonight, we have at the ball game, we have a lot going on senior night. And then at the halftime of the boys game, we're gonna do a ring and trophy presentation to number 1, our one-act play state champions for this year. And we'll be presenting their state championship rings and their state championship trophy. And then the reason we set it for tonight was we're playing Wilburton, and we are also presenting a replica that the original was destroyed in the fire in 1979, I believe. And we're presenting a replica of the 1975-76 one-act state championship trophy to some of those. I think as of today, we had 3 of those members of that team that were going to be here tonight, along with Dr. Teresa Butler, that's the superintendent at Wilburton. And so that'll kind of be a special time for us. So, and that's the reason we move the board meeting up tonight so we can make it to that. That's superintendent's report.
Okay. So this time we move on to action topics. A, consideration of revision of the 21-22 school calendar.
Okay, and you have that, a copy of that revised calendar we had in January. We had to take 2 additional days out of school. And what we did was we split those. That was Thursday, January the 13th, Friday, January 14th. And we took, on that Thursday, we took a virtual day. And then on Friday, we called it a snow day, in which we had 3 Fridays originally built in April to be out of school if we didn't use them. So January 14th, we will make up for that on April the 8th, on a Friday. And then down February 3rd and 4th, we were out because of weather. And we called both of those snow days because we had discussion and feel like if we're gonna take school out, if we're going to say that in-person learning is better than virtual, when we can, then we want to try to make those days up in person. So that we were in the beginning out of school on April 15th and April 29th. We'll be in session now on those days. So in April, you see on the calendar, the only day out is the Monday after Easter, which will be April the 18th. But those are the revisions to the calendar. After those are approved, then we'll upload that to the State Department.
Make a motion to approve the revised calendar for 21-22 school year.
Second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to accept the revision of the 21-22 school calendar. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic B, consideration of the school calendar for the 22-23 school year.
Okay, this is our proposed calendar for next year. For the most part, if you'll notice, it's just corresponding dates from this year, with one exception. Several years ago, we went to going, around Christmas break, we went to going to school a little bit longer into that week leading up to Christmas. That Christmas next year would be on Sunday. And then, instead of getting out earlier, taking a little more time off on that week after, the time after New Year's. So that would be the only change. And other than that, it would be one less snow day in April. Other than that, it's corresponding dates to what we did this year. For 23-24, we're gonna probably wanna look at, down the line, look at moving the start date and end date back a week, because we're gonna start getting into July. And so we'll probably wanna look at that when we do this again next year.
Make a motion to approve the 22-23 school calendar. I'll second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by David to accept the school calendar for the 22-23 school year. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic C, consideration of revision and or adoption of the following policies. Number 1, revision, non-discrimination, DAA, adoption, discrimination complaints, procedures, DAA-P.
Okay, and we already have the first part of this policy in our policy book labeled DAA. And the first page that you have, that is that page. And the only thing that is added when it talks about Stigler Public Schools does not discriminate on the basis of disability, race, color, religion, national origin, sex, age, or veteran status. It adds or gender. And then down at the bottom, before where it has Stigler and our street address and so forth, we changed inquiries concerning application of this policy may be referred to, and instead of it still had Mr. Clayton Edwards as superintendent. And really, it doesn't need to be the superintendent because the superintendent's a part of the process possible. So we just referred to the assistant superintendent for Title IX 504 ADA compliance. And then the rest of that policy, DAA-P, that's just the procedures. On the second page, you have definitions of terms that would be used in those procedures. The third page is the filing and processing discrimination complaints. Here's the steps you take through that process. And then the last page just being general provisions. And basically, they changed on the front, added gender, and then the steps to be taken to file a complaint.
I mean, does this have anything to do with our, that critical race theory and all that? Is this all together? This
No.
is something that's been in place for a while?
Correct. It's just adding, you had those others in there already. It just adds gender. We took that opportunity to change assistant superintendent. It makes more
Yeah.
sense. And then the recommended policy did not include procedures. So it's just giving you the general procedures to follow. And this is gonna be, for the most part, you're dealing with Title IX, which is gonna be, most part falls under equity for female athletics and female activities to be equitable to males. And then, of course, 504 and ADA is gonna be special ed services typically.
Make a motion, we, make the revision to the policy, DAA?
And DAAP.
DAAP.
I'll second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by David to accept the revisions to the non-discrimination, to the DAA and adopt the discrimination complaints procedure for the DAA-P. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic D, consideration of approval of competitive esports program activity fund account and fundraisers for the 21-22 school year.
And if you remember, we voted to start that esports program a month or two ago, and they're asking to raise a little money for that program through a couple of different activities, and then for us to have the authority to open an activity account so they can move their fundraising money through that account. It'd be separate from anything else, so we can distinguish that.
These stipends, though, are they for the individual teachers, or?
Now, the stipend will be later
Okay.
tonight.
Okay.
This is just dealing with, in the summer, we typically, from here on out, will approve any fundraisers for them in the summer. But since they just started, they had a few fundraisers to kind of get things going, and then voting to open an activity account for them to deposit that money into.
Make a motion, we approve the esports activity fund and fundraiser.
I'll second.
Motion made by David, seconded by Jennifer to approve the competitive esports program activity fund account and the fundraisers for the 21-22 school year. David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic E, consideration of approval to purchase 100 laptops with emergency connectivity funds through E-rate. Stigler Public Schools portion is $25,000.
If you remember, we passed, there's 2 rounds in the connectivity fund grant, and we passed the first round, which we bought 260 Chromebooks and up to 260 hotspots and monthly service for those hotspots. I'm not sure we have them in, but we voted to purchase the 260 Chromebooks, we decided just to purchase, we can purchase up to 260 hotspots with the service that goes with it. We don't feel like we will need 260. We purchased 50 back when we did round one. So round one was a grant up to $166,154. We're not gonna use all of that, because of the number of hotspots we're using. But round two deals with teachers, and, our, teachers in the past, when we have a computer lab and it has desktop computers in it, and we're ready to change those out, what we would do in the past is take the best desktops and put them in teachers' classrooms at their desk for their use. Well, many of those desktops, well past their usage. Plus, when we talk about doing, if we have weather or whatever, and we go today, we're in traditional learning, tomorrow we're in virtual learning, then the second part of this deals with laptops for teachers. So they're providing, if you'll notice there, $40,000 for this, up to $400 per laptop. Did I do that? Oh, okay.
I probably did.
But each laptop's about $650. So what we'll do under this grant is this, in round two, is they'll provide $40,000 for, we are purchasing 100 laptops, and that's for each teacher to have a laptop. And then the school district would be responsible for the remaining $25,000 to purchase those. And this will give each teacher a suitable laptop computer to do their work on instead of their outdated desktop. And those, for the most part, those are about ready to salvage or surplus.
Does that come with all the, it says connectivity funds through E-rate?
Mhm.
None of these come where they can just plug into our system already?
Right, and
And they're
now,
ready to go whenever they get in, plug in their Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi or whatever, and they're,
no, now, Mike and Dennis will have to, when they get them, they'll format them, or I'm gonna try, hey, they will,
We'll configure them to where they'll be accessible on campus and off campus. That way they don't have to worry about trying to connect to Wi-Fi or anything
okay.
like that.
And is
I
that
won't
gonna
sound
be additional cost for software or anything, or do we have that?
No, we shouldn't have to worry about any additional software for those connections.
that sounded a lot more
Yeah.
better than my explanation was gonna be. But it's a good deal because, this grant will pay $40,000 of the cost. We'll be responsible. It's a matching type grant. So we'll be responsible for 25 to equip every teacher.
Will we order these and then pay for them and then they'll reimburse us, or will we wait until we get the E-rate money in to buy them?
The E-rate money is not on a claim basis.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll just receive that into the
Okay.
general fund.
okay.
Make a motion to approve the 100 laptops for the emergency, with emergency connectivity funds through E-rate for the Stigler Public School teachers.
A second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to approve the purchase of 100 laptops with emergency connectivity funds through the E-rate. Stigler Public Schools portion is $25,000. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic F, consideration of application for statutory number 70, Oklahoma statute 1210.568 waiver for the alternative ed program for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, and if you, I believe she uploaded this whole waiver with instructions and everything. And if you look at, on the second page of that waiver, this is gonna deal with either statutory waiver, something that's in law, or an Oklahoma statute, or a regulation. and you can see those listed on the second page. What we're dealing with, if you look down under statutory waivers, it says co-op agreement. And what that, just one sentence, when a public school wants to serve fewer than 10 students in an alt-ed program instead of co-oping with other districts. And I was not aware, since we started that evening alt-ed class back this year, that we had less than 10, but right now we do. We had our alternative ed visit for our audit this last week, and we just need to, since we're under 10, you either have to ask for a waiver, or you have to co-op with another district. Well, we can't do that at this point. So we need to apply for this waiver. And if we approve it, then we sign off on this, upload it to the State Department. It goes to the next state board meeting to be approved. And so,
What's our average?
right now, we're just averaging about 5 or 6 right now.
In a un-COVID year?
Well,
But how many do
you
we
know,
have?
last year, we moved all those kids to virtual,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't a good idea in retrospect. But before that, we'd have 20 to 22 enrolled, and
Mhm.
usually buried 15, 16 there a night. So, and that
Good.
runs from 3:45, Monday through Thursday, 3:45 till about 8 o'clock every evening. And it's a good program,
Mm-hmm.
so.
I make a motion to apply for the statutory number 70 OS 1210.568 waiver for alternative ed program for the 21-22 school year.
I'll second. Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to approve the application for the statutory number 70 Oklahoma statute 1210.568 waiver for the alternative ed program for the 21-22 school year. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic G, consideration of priority lists for facilities upgrades at middle school and high school campuses.
Okay, and we talked about this early on, a couple of years ago. It just prioritizing where our needs were, and that's in every category. And if you just talk about them, you never get any traction. So this is at the high school. We've kind of went through, and these are the kind of the major needs at each site, middle school and high school right now. These that are highlighted in red, those are included in what we're doing, what we should be beginning in the next couple of weeks, when we're talking about, first of all and foremost, taking care of any leak throughout those two campuses. And that's priority number one. But anything to do with that is, they were already on our list, but they're highlighted in red. And kind of the same thing on middle school. These three being highlighted in red, they're being taken care of in this work that we've contracted. At both sites, and I sent this to Michael Riley, said, give me some help, look at this, prioritize wise. Do you see where, do we need to move this ahead or whatever? Kind of the next step, and I believe all of this right here is we should be able to do with either ESSER money, or there'll be some, like if you move down, we will try an outdoor educational facility for ESSER money, but if that doesn't work, some of this may have to come out of building fund. So we'll just kind of see as we apply, as we do those construction application on each one. All this stuff at the high school and the middle school that's highlighted in red was approved to do with ESSER 2 money. So we're ready to go on that. We feel like if you've had a chance to look down through those lists, both at the high school, we have a high school window replacement replace patio in front of the gymnasium. That thing, it looks terrible, personal opinion. Paint all of the exterior walls, repair roof over gym restrooms. Those two on each side, if you're looking at the front, those two squares that go up, those are over the restrooms, and those are flat roofs up there. And their recommendation was to put a slope, just metal gable, hipped roof on top of that. That's this right here. Repair and paint gymnasium exterior walls and paint the roof over the lobby. These are things that will need to take place, we feel like, in the summer. All of these, they're student friendly, most of these places that do this work, so a lot of this can be done during the school year. We still need to create a man trap and do some work in that high school office to only allow pedestrians to come into a certain point and not allow where they have open access to hallways and stuff. So that's a summer project. We want to relook at this, possibly do covered area out in the front with concrete slab. Our track needs to be addressed. And lastly, down here, asphalt overlay over particular areas in our parking lots. If you look at the middle school, it's kind of the same line. Window replacements at both campuses is pretty much the next priority to get us.
Didn't we replace the windows at the, I'm sorry, grade school?
Grade school.
Yeah.
So now, at some point, and this is kind of way down the line, or maybe it needs to be a priority at some time, is to address our cafeteria situation at the high school. It's just an area of concern that we haven't addressed yet, and just adding this to it, to put it out there and see kind of in the future how we want to take care of this. This is an area that could be taken care of with ESSER 3 possibly. If we did a construction application and we said right now we can only house 100 students at a time in that commons area to eat, we're busing that food in and out every day, and that's a health concern because you don't have enough room to adequately house those kids. But here's just one idea to deal with that situation, and this is, this will probably be changed, before we would ever address it down the line. But new construction accessible through the current side door of the media center. So what this plan kind of looks at is as you come through the front of the high school, we have the library media center back behind there, was to open that up and make that a commons. We need a place to get the kids in out of the weather, get them in from a lot of days from being exposed to the street in front of them for safety reasons. And we might say no one would ever come by that front of that high school and open fire or anything on our kids, but to get them out of that area, and especially in weather conditions where they can, and it's visible from the office, they can monitor it. And if you go in and out to the left, there's a exit door out the back of that library, and possibly access a small media center and cafeteria out in that back area right there. And they built in down in that annex on the south end. It's a storage area right now, but it was built in there to access the back for any future expansion. You could use that, but access it from the back of the media center. So you'd have a big commons area, cafeteria, and then come in that commons area and go ahead and outfit that for what we've needed. If it's something they can use, we could possibly outfit that for a cheerleading workout room. And so they have access right next door, pep rallies and everything for the stage and the auditorium. It would be very handy for them. And so, but we can look at this and kind of tweak it. And like I say, this is not happening next week, but just get those plans out there and kind of look at them and see what's possible. But these two things, I wanted to present these tonight, and where if you guys see, well, we need to do this next week, we need to move this, does this look like a good plan, a good kind of way to address those needs in that kind of in that order? And so we kind of have a roadmap to remodel and make our campuses look good.
Now, back on the high school, adding are you doing away with the big awning, that $300,000 awning out front? Or is that still gonna take place?
It's down here.
Oh, well, I was wondering if you was putting that back because you wanted to move the commons area and do all that work.
We put that
Take that
back.
money.
I think if we did that out front, we need to rebid it.
Yeah. I was wondering if you was gonna use that money for part of the redoing the commons area and the cafeteria and all that. If it was still staying at that 360,000 or whatever it was.
We could do one of two things, and we just set that ESSER 3 money aside.
Okay.
We could either use that to offset for remodel at the grade school, or we could come up here and and it may depend on what they would approve. But we could possibly use that money if that application would go through to take care of this need also.
Okay.
So we just because if you'll notice, we've been after those roofs for months. And so now's the time, as they get started on that, we know we have the funds available to go ahead and take care of the window replacement, for example. So we could go ahead and start opening that in the next month or so, opening that up to bids, getting that process going, and having that, instead of getting the roofs done, now let's start the bid process for the windows, so we can kind of overlap some of these things. And the funds are there to take care of these two campuses. So we would, if we're all on the same page, we would start in the near future on the window replacement.
Okay. Do you want us to approve this without knowing what the costs are gonna be on all this, or what is it?
No, and we're gonna take it one at a time.
Okay.
We're gonna go here, and we'll bring this to you. We gotta
Okay.
bring this to you.
Okay.
And we'll advertise it.
Okay.
We'll open it up for bids. We'll have a bid meeting. We'll have a time where we accept bids, a deadline, and then we'll bring those bids to the board for approval. We won't start any of this without that process. We just wanna make sure that I'm sitting here, and I think this is the best way to attack it. And you guys and the principals and teachers think, no, we should go this total different direction.
We've already approved all that in the red.
Yes,
So
this
that's
is
why it's
already
highlighted.
underway,
All the rest of it
and as
is
we see it,
later.
practically windows, we need that efficiency. A lot of those windows you can't even get open, and they leak some places. They're terrible. So, just to prove this, as this is our general game plan for improving the middle school and high school campus. High school and middle school.
That, we're not approving the other work done that you had up there for the high school?
No,
Okay.
no.
Make a motion to approve the priority list for facilities upgrades to the middle school and high school campuses.
A second. Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to approve the priority list for the facilities upgrade at the middle school and high school campuses. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Action topic H, consideration to enter into contract with architect Michael Riley for preliminary plans and estimates pertaining to the grade school campus.
Okay, and you have a copy of the contract in there?
I just don't know about the contract, we got kind of the overlay, yeah, I guess it is in here.
Is it? Yeah, it's down below. So I've got that there in case y'all didn't have it. Now, we've talked about this a little bit, and this is very general. This is just Mr. Riley, myself, Ms. Garman, sitting down and trying to come up. Number one, we need to decide where we want to work on a grade school campus. Do we want to work on a new grade school campus up across from the high school? We kind of know what that entails. That's a whole new facility. If we come down here and work on our existing, we kind of worked on this. But if we vote to hire Mr. Riley tonight, he will start work on whatever plans we ask him to work on, and with no cost to us unless we proceed. And so, just to give you a general idea, and this is just something he did up for me to have a visual. If we're down at, here's your existing older grade school here, here's your existing cafeteria and gym. Existing, this is, I call it first grade building, it has some fourth grade classes down here. This would be new construction right here. So we would have, and these are not correct in the number of classrooms or anything. We would need this cafeteria. It would consist of cafeteria and enough classroom space, and go ahead and move in your offices, your special ed, and enough classrooms to empty this building here. And if we could do that and keep this right now as a PE building, little grade school gym, and with new cafeteria to begin with. If we could do that, then we could, that ESSER 3 money that we were talking about earlier, we could do the work at the high school, the cafeteria, the media center, and that kind of thing. Or we could use that money once we got this built. I don't think we could use ESSER money to build this new construction, but we could use it probably to do this remodel of this building, and then move this new construction over to the point that we could incorporate that present first and fourth grade building and build a corridor here. This would be hallways, and we may even access hallways into this main area. And then, but what this would allow us to do, it would allow us to be anywhere in that building without going outside. So a first grader over here, somebody over here, somebody over here could maneuver throughout the whole building without going out into the weather. And that's kind of what moving it over this way does. This would be our bus loading area, and so our kids could come out. We'd have a couple set of double doors here if we had kids that needed to wait for the bus or wait for pickup. This we kind of visualize, it doesn't have to be that way, but if this was our third and fourth grade section, their pickup, parent pickup would be here, they would be picked up over here to kind of split that and get some of that traffic divided up somewhat. That's just a real rough. One of the other things that in talking to some of our teachers, and I agree with this too, is to make our buildings as much of a I hate to use barricade, but as much of a barricade from the street as we can. So you're looking at, we can do some of that with building here, but we would have to, I think, at some point invest in some type of fencing, something to kind of take away that visibility from the street. when those kids are in the playground, but we can do that. And then we still have this area out here. This area over here the school owns, we could make parking for people to access the building. So that's just a rough sketch. I wanted to, if we did hire Mr. Riley to make those plans, then we would talk with him over the next month or so about how do we want to address this. But we need to approve first to have him start, so he's on contract to do plans on it. Questions?
Yeah, it says option 5. I was looking at that and I was wondering if there's 4 more, or is that, I mean, or do you have 4 other different options that moves this around some?
We had, yeah, there might have been more than that.
Yeah.
I doubt this was the last one, but one of them, we were putting the main over here, and then we've got to look where that doesn't work. We thought that the front was best to point this way, because we've got so much potential for parking and that kind of thing over here. And then, but this is really irrelevant right now. We had this moved over here with space now, but we like this because of not having to go out into the elements and stuff.
The
But
cafeterias, would the cafeteria be a safe room also?
potentially. And remember, we're real preliminary here, so we'd need to. But I
that's an
think,
option.
I think we, you know, that's something we needed, is that area for community and our kids, so. Any other questions? Okay.
So this is just that Michael Riley draw up some sort of plans like we've looked at before, or?
And what, this, we can do all of our, I'm gonna say, we can do all of the stuff that we talked about earlier at the middle school and high school, and we can address, if you take with the exception, if we did anything on a cafeteria, that part. All of the rest of it, feel like we can address with either ESSER money or, the money we have in the building fund right now, and be relatively comfortable in doing that. When you go to this, starting to solve the needs at the grade school, that's gonna, especially that new construction with the cafeteria, and I'm gonna say, minimum we need about 17 classrooms to get that main building empty, so that we can remodel and then move a group of kids over into it. And that would ultimately, with this plan, put all of our kids on that campus, get these kids off over here.
Pre-K
And
kindergarten.
we're already, this year, we had a little activity room for them, we had to make a classroom out of that. So that would get the pre-K and the K at this side also.
So that does away with all this? Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And, but with that new construction, the cafeteria, let's say 17, 18, 20 classrooms, office area in the front, you gotta move your special ed in there. That would have to come from a bond issue or something along those lines. But hopefully, an affordable. But that's part of what he'll do in this, is site and floor plans of the building, 3D renderings and presentation drawings. And number 3, provide any necessary cost estimates and estimate schedules for payoffs for the bondsman. And then we decide from there, you know, what direction we want to go.
But you said this, he wasn't gonna charge us for doing this, correct? Is what he said?
There's no charge unless we, were to run a bond and it's successful. And then you go to, you know, where he would make a living, you know, from the work he would do from there.
And I don't have a problem with getting some numbering together, I mean, just looking at it.
Have to.
I mean, doesn't look like it's gonna cost us anything at this point, we'd have to, there's a lot of work to do
Yeah,
after this.
exactly. And try to keep it, you know, we can't know what reasonable is till we get some numbers, you know, so.
I'll make a motion, we enter into a contract with architect Michael Riley for preliminary plans and estimates pertaining to the grade school.
I second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by David to enter into contract with architect Michael Riley for preliminary plans and estimates pertaining to a or the grade school campus. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. This time we move on to executive session. A proposed executive session to discuss and act upon the following business pursuant to 25 Oklahoma Statute 307B1 of the Open Meeting Act. Number one, discussion of the continued employment of administrative personnel for the 22-23 school year. Tom Kettles, Federal Programs Director, Assistant Superintendent. Tony Gilmore, High School Principal. Matt Jones, Middle School Principal. Melanie Garman, Grade School Principal. Number two, discussion of resignation of Cassandra Sestada, Grade School Library Aide, effective February 4th, 2022. Number three, discussion to employ a grade school teacher's aide for the remainder of the 21-22 school year. And number four, discussion of competitive esports program stipends for the 21-22 school year.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
I'll second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to convene an executive session at 5:59 p.m. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes.
Second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer to return to board in open session at 6:42 p.m. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Members present during executive session were Kenny Whitson, David Huggins, Jennifer Turner, and Susan White. Superintendent David Morgan was also present. No votes nor motions were taken during executive session.
Employment of administrative personnel for the 2023 school year. Tom Kettles, Federal Programs Director, Assistant Principal. Tony Gilmore, High School Principal. Matt Jones, Middle School Principal. And Melanie Garman, Grade School Principal.
I'll second.
Motion made by David, seconded by Jennifer to continue employment of administrative personnel for the 22-23 school year. Tom Kettles, Federal Programs Director, Assistant Superintendent. Tony Gilmore, High School Principal. Matt Jones, Middle School Principal. And Melanie Garman, Grade School Principal. David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
And Susie, yes.
I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Cassandra Sestada, Grade School Library Aide, effective February 4th, 2022, and we employ Latanya Goodman as Grade School Teacher's Aide for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year.
A second.
Motion made by Jennifer to accept the resignation of Cassandra Sestada, Grade School Library Aide, effective February 4th, 2022. Jennifer?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
I'm sorry, David?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. And also to employ a grade school teacher's aide for the remainder of the 21-22 school year. Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
And Susie, yes.
Make a motion that we accept the competitive esports program stipends for the 21-22 school year, $700 for the coach and $400 for the assistant coach.
Second.
Motion made by Kenny, seconded by David to accept the competitive esports program stipends for the 21-22 school year of $700 for the coach, $400 for the assistant coach. Kenny?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Any business?
No new business.
New
Make a
business.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Kenny and Jennifer, 6:45. Motion made by Kenny, seconded by Jennifer at 6:45 PM to adjourn. Kenny?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Susie, yes. Next regular meeting, March 7th, 2022.